Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking a seriously intricate and frankly mind-bending forensic audit. The source material we're looking at presents a massive unified theory claiming that high-performance unidentified anomalous phenomena, what we've all been calling UFOs for decades, are not alien at all. Instead, the author argues they are entirely terrestrial. They're human-engineered machines built by a deeply compartmentalized military-industrial syndicate. We're going to dig into the exact physics, the public patents, and the historical records the text uses to build this case. And, incredibly, we'll look at how a reverse-engineered craft might have actually crashed in the year 1803. We have to start with the foundational lore this text builds upon. Back in 1993, Ben Rich, the legendary father of stealth and director of Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works, gave a chilling confession during a lecture at UCLA. He literally said, "We now have the technology to take ET home." According to the audit, he absolutely wasn't speaking in metaphors. This statement sets the stage for the text's core argument. A massive corporate syndicate already possesses a breakaway space program, and they've been sitting on this technology for a long time. The source material is incredibly dense, so to keep our bearings, here's our roadmap for today. First, the Human-Built Breakaway Fleet. Then, the blueprint of the Flux liner. Third, Barium Titanate as the magic dielectric. Fourth, engineering the temporal bubble. And finally, the Smithsonian Confiscation Protocol. Okay, part 1, the Human-Built Breakaway Fleet. The core premise here is crucial to understand. The military-industrial complex didn't invent magic, and they didn't rely on mystical alien alloys. Think about conventional flight. Aerodynamics. It completely relies on pushing air backward with jet exhaust and using physical control surfaces like flaps to turn. But what the text calls space-time engineering is a totally different paradigm. It relies on polarizing the quantum vacuum to actually generate thrust. It manipulates the local gravitational metric, which basically allows a craft to move at hypersonic speeds with absolutely zero moving parts. Moving on to part 2, blueprint of the Flux liner. To ground these fantastical claims, the author points us directly to the factory floor, specifically to a 1980s prototype. Notice how the progression mirrors our own public technological timeline. It all starts in the Cold War 1950s with Navy sonar and very specific ceramic patents. That research evolves into the brutal, heavy metal 1980s prototypes known internally as the Alien Reproduction Vehicle, or ARV. And finally, it scales up to the present day with the TR-3B Astra, which is described as a massive, plasma-driven black triangle. It's a clear engineering lineage. Based on an allegedly classified 1988 leak at Norton Air Force Base, witnessed by a defense contractor, the text breaks down the ARV's internal anatomy. And you gotta pay close attention to the crew cabin details here. The author makes a brilliant point. An alien craft with flawless interstellar physics wouldn't need standard Martin Baker ACE's 2 F-16 ejection seats. Their inclusion proves this was a terrestrial, highly dangerous, human-built machine. The craft also featured a massive 48-section capacitor floor and had absolutely no windows. It relied entirely on fiber optic synthetic vision to protect the human crew from the engine's lethal radiation. Part 3, Barium Titanate, the magic dielectric. So how did this 1980s machine actually get off the ground? To really grasp the physics here, we need to quickly define a dielectric. Think of it like a giant electrical sponge. If you want to warp gravity using electrical fields, you have to pump millions of volts into a capacitor. A normal insulator would instantly melt into superheated plasma. A dielectric, however, can store that immense electrical pressure without shattering or allowing the lightning to arc straight through it. And the author points to this undeniable real-world receipt, U.S. Patent 2420864A. This is a Cold War-era patent filed specifically for a barium titanate dielectric. The text argues that defense contractors didn't need exotic, unobtainable alien materials. They perfected and patented this very specific earthly ceramic to build the floor of their breakaway fleet. Barium titanate is special for a few massive reasons. It has an astronomically high dielectric constant to store all those millions of volts. It's highly piezoelectric, meaning it instantly converts electricity into physical vibration. And its immense density withstands the unimaginable stress. The text claims that by pulsing huge DC currents into these heavy ceramic blocks, a literal mass reduction field is created. The physical stress of holding back that lightning causes the entire floor of the ship to vibrate thousands of times a second, producing this terrifying mechanical hum. Let's move to part 4, engineering the temporal bubble. Because here is where we transition from merely neutralizing mass to actually manipulating the fabric of time itself. Fast forward to the modern TR-3V. The author claims it uses a gigawatt-class liquid metal fast reactor to power superconducting coils. These coils spin a massive ring of highly pressurized mercury plasma at 60,000 RPM. This magnetic field disruptor brute forces a localized vacuum. But here's the kicker. If this drive overvolts, that spinning plasma creates extreme frame dragging. In physics, this is known as the lens-fearing effect. Which brings up a really profound question regarding the aerospace patents that are hiding in plain sight. Why do we see defense contractors filing patents for inertial mass reduction devices, but never for, well, time machines? Because, mathematically speaking, they are the exact same thing. Generating a massive localized gravity well bends space-time. When that ARV drive overvolts and creates that extreme frame dragging we talked about, it generates what's called a closed time-like curve, or CTC. The craft literally slips out of linear time. And the audit points to a devastating historical paradox to prove this, the 1803 Utsuro-bune incident. In 1803, Japanese fishermen recovered a metallic bell-shaped craft with a glass cupola, heavy metal plates, and a pale, dying pilot inside. The geometry from the 1803 drawings flawlessly matches the blueprints of the 1980s ARV Fluxliner prototype, right down to the English Mill Stand 130 military stenciling on the interior panels. It wasn't an alien ship, it was a temporal breach. We reverse-engineered our own future, and one of those crafts crashed in the past. Which brings us to part 5, the Smithsonian Confiscation Protocol. Because if anomalous crashes like that were happening, how do you keep that physics and that history a secret? The text points to the founding of the Smithsonian's Bureau of Ethnology back in 1879, under Major John Wesley Powell. Powell championed unilinear evolution, the rigid dogma that all human societies must progress in a straight line from primitive to civilized. According to the audit, the Smithsonian was weaponized under this Powell doctrine to act as an institutional cleanup crew. Any physical evidence, whether it's anomalous giant skeletons or an anachronistic metallic craft covered in military stenciling found in an ancient mound, was a direct threat to the established timeline and therefore had to be actively suppressed. The author claims a standardized, brutal confiscation protocol was executed time and time again. You can find hundreds of old newspaper clippings that follow this exact 4-step pattern: discovery by a local citizen, a report published in the town paper, immediate interception by an institutional agent, and finally confiscation into a bureaucratic black hole. The items supposedly get lost in warehouse fires or mysteriously misplaced in archives, ensuring they simply vanish from the public record entirely. We're going to leave you with this final, absolutely staggering concept from the audit, the ontological paradox, or the bootstrap loop. Following World War II, the U.S. military supposedly found that 140-year-old Utsuro-bune wreckage in the Pacific. They gave it to Lockheed, and Lockheed reverse-engineered it to build the exact ARV craft that eventually slipped out of time and flew back to crash in 1803. The machine was built because it was found, and it was found because it was built. So, if the patents are public and the history is suppressed, what else is hiding in plain sight behind the myth of the flying saucer? Keep asking questions.